It's hour number 2. It is Extra 1360 with you until 3 o'clock. Loose Cannon's coming up later on today. Padres and Dodgers for the first time in 2021 during the regular season. 7:10 tonight. Going to be Ryan Weathers for the Pods. Walker Buehler, who's had great success against the Padres in his Dodger career through 5 starts for the team up north. All right, let's say hello to Dennis Lin from The Athletic. Dennis Lin, who we mentioned earlier in the show, did outstanding work yet again. I know I'm repeating myself every time, but Dennis wrote a really, really good piece, like a long look at the Dodgers and the Padres. Padres appear closer to the Dodgers than ever in talent and in spending. I'm guessing he'll be there a little later on tonight. It's been an eventful week since last we spoke to Dennis. Padres went 5-2. Joe Musgrove threw the first no-hitter in franchise history. Dennis, Darren, good afternoon to you.
Hey, Darren. Yeah, it's been an interesting season so far already, and I guess that's all we can ask for, right? I think people are rightfully making a big deal out of the series, maybe overreacting a little bit, but that's part of our industry, and I think we're all grateful for the storylines.
I would agree with everything you said, Dennis. I wonder, you know the team, you know the club really well. You have great connections and relationships inside of that building. You talk about, and one person from the organization used the term, it's a little overblown, but let's roll with it. But how do you think they're approaching this series tonight? From players to coaching staff to front office, how do you think the Padres feel about this one, the first of 19 starting tonight at Petco Park?
I think they're downplaying it, playing it on the outside, and inside they're really looking forward to it, especially to facing someone like Trevor Bauer, who kind of, I don't know if you call it, stole the Padres' thunder when the Dodgers signed him. In the off season that the Padres pretty much dominated until then. But they're very much looking forward to facing the Dodgers and seeing how they measure up, because this is a new season with some new pitchers and even a young pitcher like Ryan Weathers, who they really believe in. They think he's got the potential to be really good. So I think they're very much downplaying it on the outside, but I wouldn't let that fool you. I think that they are keeping a sense of perspective while at the same time, understanding that this is a big deal.
Yeah, big series. It's a big series in the month of April, right? Like, you don't get those. And Dennis, you've been covering this team for a really long time. I don't know that you've put a single second of your energy into thinking about this, but I don't know when the last time was that we were all this excited about an April series, even given that you and I are trained professionals and trained to say things like, it's a long season, everybody. There's still so much baseball to go. And you still got to play on Monday, and there's 144, whatever. I mean, I can't remember the last time that we were talking like this about a series in the month of April.
Yeah, and I think the perspective that we're talking about, just that this is a long series and a long season, can't be overstated, because that's what this is about, right? This is about, being there at the very end in October or November, potentially, and, lasting for a long season. It's not just about one game or one series, but at the same time, I think all the coverage around just, Friday night, tonight, that kind of shows how much the sport needs these two teams to be good. And obviously the Dodgers are very good. The Padres need to prove it themselves. I think most people would agree they look very good on paper. But just having this rivalry, a potential rivalry, I know Dodgers fans are quick to remind you it's not a rivalry yet, or it might not ever be, like it is with the Giants and the Dodgers. But I think baseball definitely needs it right now with the way things have gone across the country and across the sport in recent years.
Dennis Lin from The Athletic is joining us on Extra 1360. And even though one team could lose all 3 games upcoming this weekend and then win the next 16, right? We understand that there's proper context with all of that. You and I know it, and so does everybody in our audience. They just don't want to hear it. Nobody wants to focus on that today. But I do think there is a little something, Dennis, to, if somebody's going to slow down this Dodger team, which is firing out of the gates, which has won 8 straight division titles, they're 11-2. They lost on opening day in a goofy game. They lost in an extra inning game against Oakland. At some point here, if you're going to slow the Dodgers down, you have to do it by beating them. And I do think that that's an important and a very relevant point about this weekend, and certainly into next weekend as well, with a 4-game series up there.
Yeah, the Dodgers just look like they just keep getting better. They got guys like Zach McKinstry who come up and perform right away. I know that's been the case with other guys that are household names with the Dodgers, but they just seem to come up and perform right away. And the Padres, it's interesting. If you look at how much they're spending now, it's mostly on guys they brought in from outside. I know Tatis wasn't drafted by the Padres or signed by the Padres, but He's kind of almost an exception since they brought him into the organization before he played a pro game. But if you look at the roster now, the Dodgers are kind of the homegrown team. Setting aside payroll, and you have to give them credit for developing their own talent and doing it very well. And the Padres are the ones who've kind of brought in all these. You wouldn't call them mercenaries, but they still need to prove that they can develop their own talent as well as the Dodgers can. I don't know if they'll ever get to that level, just because the Dodgers are so good at that. But to knock off the Dodgers, you need a guy like Ryan Weathers, a homegrown player, to deliver. And I think that's a really important sticking point starting tonight. Obviously, it's only one start for him. He's the youngest pitcher in the majors right now, so he's still got a lot of time, but I think they're expecting a lot out of him.
Dennis Lynn from The Athletic is joining us. Dennis, you could have taken a million different angles, and none of them would have been the wrong angle to take here, previewing a series between the Padres and the Dodgers. But the look that you took at the history between the two franchises, dating back to Buzzy Bavasi, coming from Los Angeles, becoming the first general manager in Padres history, talking a little bit about Seidler and the O'Malley family with the Dodgers, now the Seidler family here. I wonder, how does your brain work like that? Like, how did you come up with this angle? Because it's such a good one, and it was such, you could have focused on the here and now and position by position, and how does it match up, or last pose. Like, this was such a good angle to take. I loved it. How'd you come up with it?
Well, thank you, Darren. A little while ago, I was looking at some payroll numbers, and there's public estimates out there that are fairly accurate for this kind of thing. And the Padres luxury tax number, which is not a phrase that I don't think we've ever talked about before this year, because the Padres have never been close to the luxury tax. And just as a quick explainer, the luxury tax is kind of just a soft cap on payroll that is part of the CBA, a way to try to promote equity throughout the game, just so one team just doesn't go crazy spending. Although the Dodgers have continued to spend, to their credit. But I saw that the Padres were really, really close this year to the luxury tax threshold, which is, what you need to reach to start incurring that luxury tax. And that's in large part thanks to the contract they signed Fernando Tatis Jr. to, and the way these things are calculated is with the luxury tax number is different from your payroll number, because it takes the annual or average annual value of all the contracts on your team and it adds it up. So the Padres are, only several billion away from reaching that luxury tax threshold. So if you're talking about, their rankings there, they're like, fourth or fifth highest in the league right now in the majors in terms of spending on, in terms of the luxury tax. So never seen that before. And, with the Dodgers coming to town and being the only team right now above that threshold, with the signing of Trevor Bauer, they smashed that threshold actually. I just thought it was a really interesting illustration of how far the Padres have come in terms of, who owns the team and how willing that owner, Peter Seidler, is right now to spend. And of course, he comes from, the Dodgers family with his uncle and his grandpa owning the Dodgers for, almost 50 years. And he's seen what it takes to build a winning organization, an organization that really has staying power in community. And that's what he's trying to do right now. I think there's, a lot of people would agree still that the Padres are a long way from ever getting to that stratosphere from the Dodgers, but this is a pretty good start. You have an owner who's willing to spend, and that's pretty much all that matters in this sport. And
as people around here know, Dennis, talk is cheap, but they have backed it up by actually doing the things that others have just talked about. You had a great line here from Eric Grupner, the CEO. When we talk about revenue, we like to say all gas, no brake. We'll keep testing the limits of how far we can go. We think we still have plenty of headroom. I interpret that as we're still willing to spend more money. This isn't, all right, we're pushing all in for 2021, and then we're going to get back to our reality or perceived reality in 2022. It's an interesting thing to put out there for public consumption from Eric Grupner.
Yeah, and I think we're going to find out how much headroom they have. I think the question I'd asked that prompted that was, how much more room do you think you have to go in terms of, growing the sponsorship pie in San Diego, which is a smaller market than a lot of markets, and you could argue that they've done a really good job there the last few years. So I wondered, how much potential there is to still grow there. And that's something he's talked about before already, is just growing the overall pie in Asia with Ha-Seong Kim and Darvish here, and that's already shown up with a couple of new sponsorships there. But San Diego is a different market, as you know. There's only one team here. I think the absence of the Chargers probably does benefit the Padres quite a bit. Maybe not as much as people expect, but there's a lot of opportunity here to not only win, for the first time in a long time in San Diego, but also to, reap the benefits of that, because I think the Padres have already shown that by spending recently and committing to putting together a quality product, people are already responding to that. And hopefully on the other side of the pandemic, people will get, the chance to, get back into the ballpark on a more regular basis. And I think the thing they're doing right now is betting by doing all the spending they're doing right now that it's going to pay off in a year or two.
Dennis Lynn is joining us on Extra 1360. Let's get some of the specifics out there, Dennis. Everybody expects that Fernando Tatis Jr. is going to be activated tonight, that he will be a contributor this weekend. What are you hearing about the Padres shortstop?
Yeah, that he's ready to go. I think he was ready to go the day after he dislocated his left shoulder about 10 days ago. But yeah, it's for me, it's not really a matter of whether it's been long enough for him to strengthen those muscles in his shoulder. That's something he's been doing for years now, probably ramping it up a little more, in light of recent events. But that's more of a matter of how long is he gonna stay on the field. I think they're all cognizant of the fact that this could happen again, maybe soon, because each time you subluxed that shoulder, it just becomes more likely that's going to happen again. So they're aware of that possibility. But as AJ Preller has said, their team doctors don't believe that even if that does happen, that he's going to do significant long-term damage to that shoulder. Now we'll find out if that's true, if it does happen again. But I think people are going to be closely watching him to see how much he has to adjust his style of play just to try to stay on the field in the meantime. I think given the athlete that Tatis is and just how much aptitude he has, it might be an easier transition for him than it would be for other players, but it's still could be a significant adjustment for him, for someone who plays so hard and who plays with so much aggressiveness on the field, that I think we're all going to be watching him really closely and probably holding our breath a little bit every time he does something athletic, because we saw less than 2 weeks ago what happened with that shoulder, and it'd be a shame if he has to miss the rest of the season at some point. But I think for right now, they're of the mind that everybody's body is different. The Padres have access to his scans, and we're definitely not doctors, and we don't have access to those scans. So, they think this is, a route for him that possibly he can stay on the field for a little bit longer and, hopefully for the rest of the season. But we'll just have to find out starting tonight.
Dennis is not only an outstanding writer and guest, also a hitting coach as well. What do you make of Tatis Jr., these video clips that we've seen of him now adjusting the finish on his swing with both hands on the bat? I guess is that a lot of what they were doing? Was this 10 days about him resting, or was this 10 days about him just mentally preparing for some of the things that they're going to ask him to change about his game, including that swing, which is the most obvious one?
Yeah, well, initially it was about, giving him some time to have the inflammation in the shoulder go down, and apparently it went down very quickly because he was very quickly back on the field with the team, doing stuff pregame, taking full batting practice, live batting practice. And in addition to that two-hand finish that you've seen in some video clips, they talked to him about, diving, whether that's on defense or running the bases, and the risk there. So I assume, if the ball's hit up the middle to his left, that's going to be something to watch. And also, sliding feet first. But yeah, what you mentioned with the swing, the two-handed finish, that's definitely been the most conspicuous change. I don't know how drastic of a change it is, just because, he has used the two-handed finish before in swings and games. It's just more often it's been one-handed. But when you're using a two-handed, finish, that's less stress on one shoulder, and that's hopefully something that will keep him healthy. But I don't know. I'm definitely not a hitting coach. I don't know exactly how much of an impact that's going to have on his offense. I think, again, he's such a good athlete that, the fact that he's worked on it for a few days and, had some time to think about it, I think he'll be okay doing that. But, it's a psychological thing now too, right? Just, having to think about that shoulder and try to protect himself, which is probably what he was doing at the start of the season, but even more so now that, everyone's talking about it and everyone's paying attention to it. So I think the full effects of these tweaks he's made in the past 10 days, remain to be seen, but I think the swing one is definitely the most interesting one. And I would bet on Tatis being able to make that transition just because of how good of an athlete he is.
I would wonder too, Dennis, are there any other ripple effects from this? We had said sort of out loud, and there's no real answer to this, so I don't even know that this is a real question. But, if you're Bobby Dickerson and you're the third base coach and you're down by a run and it's the ninth inning and there's 2 outs, do you send him in a situation like that? Right? Like Tatis is standing on second base and he's the game tying run in the ninth inning. Do you think about that? Like I wonder how far reaching, not just the changes that they're asking of this player, but from a manager and from coaches, like you also sort of wonder, what that's going to be all about too, if there are any other ripple effects from this kind of thing, just in any effort whatsoever to keep this kid healthy.
And you also wondered if Glenn Hoffman's sitting at home, now a member of the front office, saying, I'm glad I don't have to, have that responsibility, because you're right. That's a huge call now with Bobby Dickerson and with Tatis if those situations come up. But I would suspect that they will try to, keep things as normal as possible, which means probably sending him in a lot of cases and letting him, kind of just be the athlete he is, while also, trusting and hoping that he's very cognizant of, this being his own career and the fact that he needs to protect himself a little bit if he wants to keep playing, which is something he loves to do. I'm sure these past 10 days have been just killer for him, just watching the team play without him. So I think, it's not going to be the most joyous experience now watching Tatis. It's probably going to be a little nerve-wracking, but who knows? Everyone's body's different. Again, maybe he does make it through the season. We can only hope.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it crossed his mind, not that he's this kind of player. It's just human nature that the final out of Joe Musgrove's no-hitter was a 6-3. Like that's where he should have been. But that's neither here nor there. Myers, Dennis, any expectation for him?
I would expect him to be in the lineup today. I think, they could have put him in yesterday, but, just given that it was a getaway game against not a very good team, although they did have to salvage a split with the Pirates. They figured they could probably hold off another day. Now we'll see. Maybe he woke up this morning not feeling that great. This is, patellar tendonitis is what he's been dealing with. Sounds like going back for a while, something he's been able to play through. A relatively common injury, but I think, given the magnitude of the series, they'd really like him to be out there on the field because, quietly, Myers has been, one of their top 2-3 hitters going back a year now. And I think, for a series like this, I would expect him to be ready to go. So he's not 100%. I don't think, most players are 100% on either team or any team for that matter. And just so happens the Padres have had quite a few injuries become public early this season. So that's another storyline to follow throughout the rest of the year, including in this series, because right now it doesn't seem like these two teams are going to be meeting at 100%. With Austin Noel out, Bellinger out, a couple other guys banged up, but still a big series, obviously, and it's still a great thing that Tatis is going to be out there on the field. We just hope they can both stay that way, stay healthy, and stay competitive.
One final question, not so impactful for this series, potentially for next weekend, though, would be Dinelson Lamet. It sounds like, Dennis, we're days away from Dinelson Lamet being activated. Any update on that and who you think he might replace in the rotation?
I don't know that he'll be replacing anyone who's, actively pitching right now because, Adrian Morejon's probably done for a while. So, he naturally slides into that spot. But yeah, Dinelson Lamet probably has a decent shot at coming back in this next week, maybe for the Milwaukee series. And, Morejon going down is a big deal just because that's one less arm you have to count on for the rest of the season, potentially. We haven't heard the exact final diagnosis, and, he's gotten second opinions and all that, which probably means it's not great for, the rest of the season for Morejon on that elbow. But, Lamet's going to be counted on. And that's also interesting proposition with his injury history, but I think he'll just slide into to Morejon's spot, and they'll find ways to try to maximize him going forward.
Joe Musgrove just tweeted out, big series in the all capitals here. Big series in the home ballpark this weekend. Let's get Petco Park rocking. See y'all tonight. Joe Musgrove, who's going to be honored before the game, as Eric Rupner told us yesterday. Oh, a fun moment, huh? Friday night, Dennis. You ever think you lived long enough to see the day where a Padre threw a no-hitter?
Honestly, I was starting to think no, even though I guess I'm relatively young, but I was almost, I was of the mind that it was going to be a combined no-hitter whenever it happened, just with the way the game's been going. But, credit to Joe Musgrove. He was really efficient and really hitting his spots, and yeah, he throws a lot of breaking pitches like you, Darvish. So, people don't seem to hit breaking pitches very well in the majors today. So, all the more power to him.
Yep. Modern pitching right there, encapsulated by Dennis Lin. Dennis, great stuff on the show. Great stuff at The Athletic. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Darren.
Thank you. Dennis Lin, everybody, who will be there tonight. I'm guessing. I probably should have asked that, not just volunteer Dennis's time, but I'm guessing a home series against LA in Petco Park. Yeah, I'm guessing Dennis is going to be there. Yeah, really good. Like I said, there's so many different angles you could take on a Padres-Dodgers series, but and you wouldn't be really wrong to take any of them. This isn't me. Well, there might be one angle that's wrong, but I'll bite my tongue on that one. You and I texted about it a lot this morning. Don't give me that look. There might be one angle that you would take that you're like, why would you take that angle? At any rate, Dennis takes the right angle. That's the point.
Oh,
the point is Dennis takes a really, really good angle.
Okay. Yeah.
There are just certain people you
I
seek
know.
out for opinion that you kind of go, huh?
What?
Why?
Okay, now I get it. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thoughts?